Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Nicole, and in today's video, we're going to look at how to begin your stories and hook your readers using the concept of the ordinary world from the story structure, the hero's journey. So what exactly is this concept of the ordinary world? Basically, the ordinary world is the status quo of your main character when your story begins. And in this first act of your story, you're going to have an event called the inciting incident that is going to turn this status quo world upside down and change that daily routine of your character, and they are going to enter a special world that is different from their ordinary world. So for example, you can think of a fantasy novel like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where you have these children who at the beginning of the story are in World War II England, and they end up traveling to the countryside to escape the war, and there they find this magical wardrobe that they journey through, and they enter the magical world of Narnia. And so clearly you have this ordinary world, which is our real world, and then you have this special world, this fantasy world of Narnia. But this concept of ordinary worlds and special worlds doesn't only have to apply to fantasy stories, because you could have a character who ends up getting a new job, and so they're taken out of their ordinary world and now they have a new circle of friends. Maybe they're making more money, so they have different experiences, or maybe they move to a new country. That would be another example of them leaving their ordinary world and now they're moving to a new country, which is a special world. When you start your story, you want to begin by describing your character's ordinary world. And so I recently went back and I was rereading Christopher Vogler's book, The Writer's Journey, where he talks about how to use the hero's journey story structure to plot a novel. And I was reading his chapter on the ordinary world, and I jotted down 5 main points that I think are really helpful to apply this ordinary world to our stories and make that beginning of our stories more engaging and captivating to our readers. So the first thing to keep in mind is how your main character makes an entrance in the story. This is a really powerful way to tell your readers more about this character, and also to set up how this character is going to have a character arc over the course of the story. So really powerful stories will have where main characters have some kind of change in their personality over the course of the story. So maybe at the beginning of the story they were a little bit timid, but over the course of the story they became more courageous. And so if you really want your readers to understand how this character changes and develops over the course of the story, it's really powerful to use their first entrance to convey to the readers who this character is at the beginning of the story. So think about, for example, if you wanted your character to become more courageous, think about when you first introduce them, how can you convey to the readers that this character is timid? Or maybe over the course of the story, your story is going to be about how a character comes into an inheritance and becomes very wealthy. So then at this beginning of the story, when they first make their entrance, you would want to convey to the readers how they're not wealthy now, they're poor, and how that has affected their personality. The second thing to keep in mind following that first point is contrast. How can you introduce contrasts into the beginning of your story that are going to show us how the inciting incident is going to really impact your main character? So think about what your inciting incident is in your story, and then you want to make sure that we understand with the character's ordinary world how this inciting incident has truly upset their ordinary world. And it's really important to keep in mind here too that the ordinary world is not the ordinary world for you or for your readers. It's the ordinary world for your character. So for example, your character might be a pirate maybe, and that's not necessarily an ordinary world for the readers, but you would want to show how whatever the inciting incident is, that is going to be something that is out of the ordinary for your character. And the third thing to keep in mind here at the beginning of your story when you're using this concept concept of the ordinary world is how you can demonstrate what your hero is lacking. And so this again goes back into how you can show how they develop over the course of the story, but maybe they are lacking something in their personality. So as I said before, maybe your character is really timid, so they're lacking courage, which they're going to find over the course of the story. Or maybe it's actually something physical, like they are lacking parents. Maybe they are an orphan, and over the course of the story, they are going to find a new family. So by showing that in your opening pages, what your hero is lacking, your readers are better able to empathize with your character and also to understand what they are going to be searching for over the course of the story. The fourth thing to keep in mind is backstory and exposition. So you don't want to be dumping a ton of backstory in flashbacks in the opening of your story. And if you find that happening, it may mean that you need to go back further into your character's ordinary world. So maybe you have started the story too close to the inciting incident. And so that's another thing to keep in mind. How can you demonstrate this ordinary world in your story without dumping in so much backstory and so much info dumping where your characters are just having dialogues explaining how something works in the story, which slows down the narrative. But you want to make sure that your backstory and exposition are woven into maybe what your character's room looks like, and that gives us clues as to what their situation is and their personality as well. And fifth and finally, a really great thing to include here in the opening of your story is foreshadowing. So this is a literary technique where you kind of drop hints for your readers for what is going to happen later on in the story. So for example, let's say that there's going to be a war later on in the story, and at the beginning of your story you have your characters playing with a toy cannon, and we don't know yet that there's going to be a war, but that kind of foreshadows that there is going to be some kind of conflict later on in the story. And also with foreshadowing, you can communicate to your readers how certain characters might end up acting in the special world. So for example, you might have a side character who does something that's a little bit reckless in the ordinary world, but it doesn't really harm a lot of people, but it kind of foreshadows that this character might be a problem for the main character later on in the story when they enter that special world. So those are just 5 of the things that I jotted down when reading Vogler's book, and I'm sure that there are many, many more points to keep in mind. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What are other tips or strategies you use when you're working on the beginning of your stories? And what else do you have to add to my list? And one of the things with this concept of the ordinary world that I find really, really powerful is just thinking about how you can communicate to your reader who your characters are in the opening of your stories, and how you can get your readers to empathize and sympathize with your characters so they will want to follow those characters throughout the rest of the story and find out what happens to them. I hope this video helps you with your writing. Be sure to give it a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this one. And I'll also leave a link to my email newsletter where you can sign up and get more writing resources. And if you're not familiar with the story structure, The Hero's Journey, I have made an entire video all about it that you can check out. I'll leave a link to that in the description box as well. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic week. God bless, and I wish you all the best with your writing projects.